Did Deni Avdija ask for a trade out of DC? Uh, Maybe, but I think we all can agree that the trade benefited both sides. Next on Locked On Wizards.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Brandon Scott again, and I appreciate you guys making Locked On Wizards your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. And today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code Locked On NBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So, all right, everybody, Locked On full day, lot to talk about today. Number one, did Deni Avdija ask for a trade out of DC? Maybe or maybe not. Sources definitely differ. And we're going to look at the veteran pieces on this team and what are the chances that some of them are moved. So we're going to look at who's moved before the season, who's moved at the deadline, and who may be part of the long-term vision of the team. And I got information about Summer League, so we're going to end the show talking about the dates and times and where you can watch Summer League. Is right around the corner, everybody. So let's get into it. Number one, did Deni Avdija ask for a trade out of DC? Now, there has been sources that argue either side. There has been a source here and there that said that he indeed did ask for a trade out of DC. Now, if you look at Bill Simmons, anybody that follows or watches his podcast on YouTube knows that Bill Simmons did say that he had a source that told him that Deni Avdija did want out of DC. So, and that was last season. And so, looking at that, very well. Now, there was people, especially people that said they knew Deni, or there was sources in Israel that said he indeed did not say that. Now, one source said that Deni, the reason why they moved him to Portland, it was because it's closer to his family. Now, I don't know if his family lives on the West Coast. There are sources close to his family said that they indeed live in Israel. So there's a lot to it. But I'll say this. Obviously, it would be really, really cool to be a fly on the wall of the general manager's office and see what really goes on behind the scenes, what's really been said. But I'll say this. If I'm a betting man, I would say there was probably a 75% chance he asked out. It's clear that this team is officially Bilal Coulibaly's team. The keys have been handed to him. He was the only untradeable asset. I'm not going to get back into the trade for Deni, even though a lot of people, including myself, at first were upset, but everything's in hindsight, right? And, obviously taking time to think about it, looking, especially looking at the fact that Will Dawkins did his thing in his draft. Will Dawkins gets an AA plus, man. And this was an immaculate draft. Not only picking up Alex Sarr, who's a foundational piece, a future star, in my opinion, alongside alongside Bilal Coulibaly, who he's another player that I really, really like and think can develop into a star. So the tandem of Bilal Coulibaly and Alex Sarr, both Frenchmen, the French connection, is a very intriguing tandem, in my opinion, and it's definitely a tandem that you build upon. So I get why they traded Deni. I think the only thing is, like I said, I'm not going to get back into the trade. I think that right now I'm looking towards the future. It's done. It's over. And like I said, it's not that I didn't think that we were going to move Deni, because I think that eventually we were going to move him because, again, he doesn't fit the timeline. By the time he's out of this contract, you're going to be willing to pay some of these young guys. So I get why he did it. And I think it was a good move by Will Dawkins. Wasn't happy about it because of the fact that he was a homegrown talent, but I get why it was done. So, but getting back into whether he asked for trade, I'm going to say, yeah, I would bet. And like I said, I don't have a source that was in the room, but like I said, just the fact that it was brought up in certain circles, especially from people that are insiders in the NBA, I'm going to say he did, because I think it became clear to Deni that this team was Bilal's team, and it was time and he was best served on another team. Now, Portland is not a contender, even though I think that the best fit for Deni would have been a contending team. But I think Portland's a nice young team that could be scary in the next 3 to 5 years, man. If you look at what they got going on with Shaedon Sharpe, what they have going on with, Scoot Henderson, they have a lot of nice pieces in Portland, man, and he's going to be a good addition. But I come to terms with it, man. Like I said, I thank him for his service in DC, but I look to the future. And like I said, general manager Will Dawkins and president of basketball. Let me get it out, y'all. President of basketball operations, Michael Winger, and Travis Schlenk did an immaculate job with this draft, man. So I think a lot of credit has to go to Will Dawkins because we truly are in a new era in DC as far as Wizards basketball, man. You know, if you're a Commanders fan, you know, similar timeline, you know, new ownership over there, new general manager, new coaching staff. So there's a lot of optimism, not only with the Washington Wizards, but with Washington DC sports, because the Nationals, another rebuilding team, to get better. So there's a lot of optimism. It should be, because we've been through two really, really tough eras under Ernie Grunfeld and Tommy Shepard, and Will Dawkins has proven that he is indeed the new sheriff in town, and he did a great job with his draft. So getting back to the point of Deni, did he ask out? You know, I think that this is definitely something I wanted to bring up, but I think the real key is the draft benefited both sides. You know, he's going to go somewhere where he can be a central part of what they're trying to do in Portland. And I think what he did with the 14th pick, what the value he got out of the trade as far as getting a 2029 first rounder, getting a couple of second rounders. You know, Malcolm Brogdon is a very interesting piece, because we know that, you know, he could be moved before the season starts, but he could very well be moved at the deadline also. But he's a tradable commodity as long as he stays healthy. Health has always been an issue with Malcolm Brogdon, but he's a guy who has high basketball IQ. He's a guy that knows the game of basketball. And, you know, we're going to talk about Kuz in a little bit and Tyus Jones a little bit, but he's definitely a guy that he could benefit the young guys with his experience, with his leadership. And he's a guy that, if you look at similar play style in Johnny Davis, you know, if you look at Malcolm Brogdon's game, he's not a guy who really relies on speed. He's a player who's successful because of his footwork, his basketball IQ, his finesse. And I think that you let him work with Johnny Davis, and you try to at least give Johnny Davis one more year and see what you have. So, you know, look at the Deni Avdija trade. You know, whether he asked out or not, I would say he did, because, again, it was pretty much writing on the wall that with this front office, with him not being their guy, you know, Corey Kispert, Johnny Davis, you know, but Rui's already gone. The main focus was Bilal Coulibaly, because he was the draft pick of this new regime in the front office, and I get why Will Dawkins did it. So, like I said, any criticism on the Deni trade, it had a lot to do with the sequence of it, not so much that it happened, just the sequence of it. Because I believe that, yeah, you still make that move, Deni, if he in fact is not part of the long-term vision of this front office. And I felt like you should have also moved Landry Shamet and Kyle Kuzma before you, because I think the biggest thing is this, y'all, value, you know, getting value for these guys at a zenith. I believe that Will Dawkins got the appropriate value. You got a couple of first-round picks and a couple of second-round picks and a young tradable asset in Malcolm Brogdon. So it was a good move. Now, looking at Kyle Kuzma, and like I said, we're about to talk about that, but I believe the only thing was just a sequence of events. It was what the problem I had is that I felt like if you moved Deni, it had to be after you moved Kyle Kuzma or Landry Shamet, and possibly even Tyus Jones, because, like I said, we're about to talk about it in a minute, but Tyus Jones very well could walk for free. So that was the only problem with it. I think that he did a great job with the trade overall. I feel like Will Dawkins rocked this draft out, and I gave him an A. I'm just going to go ahead and give him an A+, because he did an immaculate job in his draft. I mean, Alex Sarr is going to be a star. Easy. I mean, Bub Carrington very well could be the future point guard for the Washington Wizards. He's got the intangibles that I love. And Kaishan George, man, he's going to be a very intriguing piece on the second unit. And it definitely, the scouting department and Brian Keefe and David Vanderpool have to work for him, because now is development time. So looking back at Deni Avdija, like I said, there's reports on both sides that ask whether, you know, they have different, I guess, viewpoints of whether he asked out or not. But I'm going to say he did, you know, because the fact of the matter is, when Bill Simmons said that, and like I said, hate him or love it, you know, whether you believe that Bill Simmons, formerly of ESPN and other networks, is a reliable source, he's a guy that definitely has, you know, he's definitely a guy that has his connections to a lot of these front offices, man. So when he said that, it kind of, I do believe that. I do believe that Deni possibly asked out, because, again, it's looking more and more that Bilal Coulibaly is holding the keys to the franchise. And look, man, he deserves, if that's the guy, then I'm ready. Like I said, Deni, before I move on, man, Deni, definitely, you know, appreciate your service in DC, man. I hate him, I love him. Young guy that got better every year. You know, whether you believe he's a star, whether you believe he was a role player, he was a guy that definitely got better every year. And you can, you know, looking at the Wizards and their track record of developing talent, you can put him down on the list as one of the successes, right? Because he was a guy that we did draft. We did develop him. He did break out and he got better. So that, you know, if anything, that's the hallmarks of a kind of an arrow pointing towards the right direction for the Washington Wizards, that, you know, we have the capability to develop young talent and get them better. So, you know, thank you for your service, but I'm looking towards the future. And I'm definitely, again, want to welcome Alex Sarr, Bub Carrington, and Kaishan George to the nation's cap. And definitely very, very, very excited to see their development and how good they can be with the Washington Wizards. And I'm definitely excited to see not only what Brian Keefe can do with them, but how much better this team can get underneath general manager Will Dawkins. So definitely comment below. Let me know what you guys think. So next on the agenda, what should one of these veterans on the roster look like they're going to get moved, and at what point, and which ones could be part of the future? We're going to talk about that next. But before we do, tonight's episode is brought to you by Gametime. So as you guys know, I am a sports fanatic. I go to baseball games during baseball season, the O's and Nats. I'm always at Nats Park, Camden Yards. I go to minor league games. I mean, I'm a sports head. NBA, the Wizards, college basketball, football. I'm always at FedEx, or right now it's Commanders Field. So I'm a sports head. But I've gone through every ticket app. To me, Gametime is the best one, and there's 3 reasons why. Number one, last minute deals. You can save up to 60% off buying last minute tickets, not only for sports games, but for concerts, comedy shows, and theater events, and etc. What else do I like? Well, all-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. And plus, seat views. Get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy tickets, which is key because you don't want to get that beam in front of you type seat, right? So, look, all you have to do is take the guesswork out of buying baseball tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. And again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day long? Have to turn on the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for your everyday to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news. Streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. All right, everybody, let's get back into it. Now, as you know, I'm looking at 5 players that are veterans on the team who either A, could be moved before the season starts, B, be moved at the trade deadline, or C, very well could be future piece, maybe. So let's start with Tyus Jones. And can the Wizards get a sign and trade for Tyus Jones? Big question right now, because chances are you very well could see him walk for free. Now, I've said this before with numerous players, whether it's Kyle Kuzma, whether it's Landry Shamet, whether it's Tyus Jones again, and looking at, maybe young tradable commodities like Corey Kispert, Deni Avdija, Rui Hachimura, which is, if you move them, you want to move them when their value is at a zenith, right? With Deni Avdija, obviously, Will Dawkins moved them when his value was at a zenith. Now, looking at Kyle Kuzma, we're about to, but in Tyus Jones, last year when there was a offer of 4 second-round picks, should the Wizards have made that move? And I'm saying yes, because yes, he has value. He's shown that he can be a starting point guard. Now, how many teams are looking for him to be that starting point guard? It's been known that he wants starter money. He wants to be a starting point guard. And he did well here in DC until he got hurt, obviously. But, he was that floor general. He can definitely be a point guard for a rebuilding team because he's looking to get other people involved as opposed to being a score-first point guard. He's a guy that, yes, he could contribute as far as points, 3-point shooting, mid-range, his floater going through the lane. And defense is something that is not going to be immaculate with Tyus Jones, even though at times it did get better. And he showed a lot more effort on that end of the court. But he's mainly a floor general offensive point guard. So can they get a sign and trade? I definitely think that Will Dawkins is going to try to work out a sign and trade. But I think the value is going to be lower than last year, which was, to me, the highest offer was 4 second-round picks. So what are you really realistically looking at? You're probably looking at second-round picks and maybe a young player. That's pretty much what you're looking for. And would that be worth it for somebody to do a sign and trade? I'm going to say no. So I'm going to say that this is going to be one of the few L's that the Wizards are going to catch, as far as I think that Tyus Jones is going to walk for free. And, it is what it is. Obviously, you want to get assets back. You want to get some kind of assets back for a player. The one situation it kind of reminds me of is the Washington Nationals with Bryce Harper. Before they let him walk in free agency and then he subsequently signed with the Philadelphia Phillies. There was a deal in place that had the Washington Nationals trading Bryce Harper to the Houston Astros for a couple of reasons. One, there was a chance that the Nationals wanted to get assets back and possibly re-sign him, but they didn't end up making that move, and they regret it because they got nothing for Bryce Harper, and as opposed to Juan Soto, where they got a lot of nice pieces. And we're about to get, James Wood. Switch subjects real quick, but James Wood's getting called up for you Nats fans. He's getting called up this weekend. So, but getting back into it, you do want to see this team get some value back for him, but I don't think they're going to get that because I don't think that his value is going to be high enough for a team to want to do a sign and trade. But I'm hoping that I'm wrong, because I'm hoping that we can try to get a sign and trade and get something back for Tyus. Moving on, Malcolm Brogdon, the newer Wizard. Now, obviously, we can't officially finalize the trade, sending Deni to Portland in exchange for the picks and Malcolm Brogdon. But I see him as a guy who he could be moved at the deadline. I don't know if he's going to be moved before the season starts. Now, if we retain Tyus Jones, you very well could see Malcolm Brogdon flipped, because at that point, you're pretty much looking at Jordan Poole being the sixth man. But if we don't bring Tyus back, I see Malcolm Brogdon being the sixth man, because you guys forget he did get a sixth man of the year award with the Boston Celtics. And we know that Jordan Poole is the type of player where he is best with the ball in his hands. And that's why I think that fact, along with the fact that we were number one in pace in the second half of last year, his team wants to get faster. If you look at the draft picks that we got, what is the one factor? Speed, athleticism. You know what I mean? Alex Sarr is athletic. He's a guy who's going to flourish in transition. So with a point guard like Jordan Poole, I see Alex Sarr being not only a lob threat, man, but a guy who's going to be able to get easy money in transition, man, because he's a guy who's very swift on his feet at 7'1". So that's why I think that Malcolm Brogdon could get moved at the deadline. I think he will get moved. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna pretty much say he's going to get moved at the deadline, and he's pretty much going to be the sixth man. I will say that. I'll be very, very surprised if he's a starting point guard, because I think all arrows point towards Jordan Poole being the man at point, if not long term, at least for the next 3 years. If not, they try to move him at some point, because look, Will Dawkins he's pretty much put the league on notice and says, look, they're scrapping everybody. If you look at the fact that Deni Avdija was moved at age 23, that's telling you that outside of Bilal Coulibaly and of course the guys we just picked, and everybody's up, everybody's tradable. And Will Dawkins is definitely, and you know what, honestly, I like that, because what did we ask before the season or before the Will Dawkins era? Do it the right way, rebuild the right way. Don't cut corners, do it the right way. That's something that both Michael Winger and Will Dawkins said. They're not going to cut corners, and they're not doing that. They're scrapping everything. They're trading everything that's tradable, and I like it, man. Like I said, few mistakes, but overall, I am enjoying this front office. So getting back into it, Landry Shamet, does he get moved? Now I think that Landry Shamet out of everybody is the most tradable guy as far as being traded before the season starts, because if you look at the fact that we got Bub Carrington and Kaishan George, a couple guys that play the guard position in the second unit, man. You got Jared Butler. So what do they do with Jared Butler? Obviously, he's slated to be the backup point. So you need to give minutes to these young guys, but especially Bub Carrington and Kaishan George. We'll see how they do in summer league, but and I think that may be a factor that holds back a potential Landry Shamet move. You want to see how they do in summer league, but either way, we're going into year two of a rebuild, and you want to give minutes to not only Kaishan George, but especially to Bub Carrington, man, because he's that one guy that I'm not going to say there's pressure on him performing or living up to be something, but again, the fact that you moved to Deni Avdija, you want to see pay dirt out of Bub Carrington. But I think Bub Carrington's going to be good, man. So I think, again, the trade wasn't well liked, but I think in hindsight, it was a good trade, in my opinion. So I'm a big fan of Will Dawkins, as you can tell, because it's refreshing to have analytical basketball minds who make sound decisions. And, the fact that we've set through Ernie Grunfeld and Tommy Shepard tells you that it's refreshing to have adults in the room in the front office, man. So moving on, Kyle Kuzma. When will he potentially be moved? Now, towards the end of the draft in round one, there were reports that the Washington Wizards were talking to the Boston Celtics potentially for the 30th pick and other picks for Kyle Kuzma. He very well could get moved. Now, looking at other factors why he couldn't get moved, obviously team-friendly deal. It's team-friendly not only for the Washington Wizards, but it's team-friendly for prospective teams who may not want to break the bank to add a scorer like Kyle Kuzma. They can add him at a very affordable price, and again, not break the bank to do so. His leadership, his championship DNA, hate or love the bubble championship. He's got a ring. You know what I'm saying? So there's factors. He set up roots in the DMV. He's a guy that wants to be here. And again, looking at Kyle Kuzma and Alex Sarr, to have people that want to be here is refreshing because we got people who are from DC who don't want to come to DC and play. So, I mean, it's refreshing. So those are factors where I can see, he's got 3 years left on his deal. So his contract's not going to weigh us down. And we could get better, obviously, especially if he changes parts of his game. Because, like I said, I am a really big Kyle Kuzma fan. I like his game. But he definitely has to learn to find ways to get other people involved. Efficiency has been an issue. But I think that he knows this. And like I said, a previous conversation, especially at the exit interviews at the end of the season, that was a question I asked Kyle Kuzma. Because I asked him, I said, look, you got an NBA championship with the Lakers. You become a leader of your own locker room here in DC. What do you want to do personally next as far as a part of your game? And it was easy. Learn to make people around you better. So I think that Kyle Kuzma knows that, that's one part of his game that has to change. He's got to find ways to get these guys around him better, and I think he will. So he could very well be a trade at the deadline. I think they're going to eventually try to get some value out of Kyle Kuzma, especially if you look at Alex Sarr. Another thing to look at is Alex Sarr wants to play the 4. So you got the history, or not the history, but the future power forward on the roster right now. So at some point, you're going to give those starting minutes to Alex Sarr. So you can see him at the deadline, being traded at the deadline. You very well can see him maybe taking a reserve role towards the end of his contract. A lot of variables, but he wants to be here. The organization likes him. So, and there's not a real rush to make that move. So moving on, because we covered Tyus Jones, we covered Malcolm Brogdon, we covered Landry Shamet, and we have covered Kyle Kuzma. Number 5, Anthony Gill. Now, he is a free agent, and it's not so much when he'll get moved, but I don't see us being very active in free agency, so I'm going to say re-sign Anthony Gill. He's a guy who is much needed for leadership. If you watch him, take a look at highlights. From my observations, just watching Anthony Gill, I've spoke to him a few times, really nice guy. A guy that, as you know, doesn't need to be a central figure. He's a guy who does all the little things that aren't necessarily categorized, diving for loose balls, energy. He's a hard-working guy, and you're not always going to find out on the stat sheet. And he's a guy who, if you look at every timeout, he's the first guy on the court. He's always in the huddle. So I think that Anthony Gill, as a guy that, he's not going to be a central part of the foundation going forward. But I think that from a leadership standpoint, you bring him back, in my opinion. So you guys definitely comment below. Let me know what you're thinking. Would you guys consider bringing back Anthony Gill? Because I would, because I think he would be great for these young guys because he was a great leader and he's a great voice in the locker room, in my opinion. So you definitely, we're not going to be very active in free agency, but I think if you make at least one move as far as free agents, you bring back Anthony Gill, in my opinion. So I got some important dates for Summer League. The Summer League schedule has dropped. So I'm going to let you guys know not only the dates and time, but where you can catch these games. But before you do, tonight's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. And with all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, everybody. Let's get back into it before we roll out. I have important dates for the NBA Summer League. So let's get into it. The Wizards' first Summer League game will be Friday, July 12th against the Atlanta Hawks. I know that's compelling, right? Considering, all the noise surrounding Alex Sarr and him refusing to work out with them. That is at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time at the Thomas and Mack Center in Las Vegas on ESPN. Game number 2 is Sunday, July 14th against the Houston Rockets at 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN2. The third game is going to be Tuesday, July 16th against the Portland Trailblazers at 8:30 Eastern Time. Again, it is going to be on NBA TV. And the fourth game, now there could potentially be a fifth game, obviously, if they are eligible for the Summer League playoff tournament. So it's to be determined with the fifth game, but the fourth game is Thursday, July 18th against the Sacramento Kings at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, and that is on ESPN. So again, definitely important dates to look forward to because Summer League is right around the corner. Also, the first official day to sign people is June 30th. But they can't officially sign till July 16th. So June 30th, we can start talking to people, whether it's through trade or free agency. So again, those are important dates. So again, I appreciate everybody. I will see you guys on Sunday. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the Free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts at Locked On, plus the national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the Free Fire TV channels app. All right, everybody, I'll see everybody on Sunday night. Everybody have a safe and blessed weekend. Drink responsibly. Definitely enjoy this nice weekend we have in the D.C. area. Hail to the Wizards, and peace.